You've done grand, laddie. Now you know what you have to do. Burn the house down. Burn them all!
Wicked gods and evil queens, assassins and enforcers, gods and demons. Confronting every great hero is a great villain. This is a tribute to the most vile and villainous. This is Most Wanted. 2017 is over and done with. Thank God. But if this past year was good for anything, it was villains. There was a slew of great movies, video games, and TV seasons, and with each a contender for Best Villain of the Year. That's why I'm going to count down the top 10 villains of 2017, with a stipulation. That being that to be eligible for this list, a villain did not have to debut this year, simply appear and be active. However, said villain will only be graded on their performance and appearances within this year, meaning if a villain from a long-running series or franchise was active this year, any of their prior actions from prior years will not be taken into consideration in this ranking. I want to stress that this list was actually insanely difficult to narrow down to just 10, which is why there will be a pretty long run of honorable mentions at the end of this video. And try as I might, I didn't get to watch everything that came out this year, so there will be inevitable blind spots. I'm sure my list would look nothing like yours if I asked you to make one, but that's what makes this fun. Now, without further ado, let's get cracking on the top 10 villains of 2017. Number 10 is Cersei Lannister from Game of Thrones. Cersei isn't my favorite Game of Thrones character, let alone my favorite villain, but I think she really came into her own this year. With the sparrows out of the way, the evil queen of Westeros was able to plot, scheme, and conquer as she does best, and with no one holding her back. Despite still being a bit ruled by her emotions, Cersei is developing into a fine tactician, forging alliances with the Greyjoys and the Iron Bank rather pragmatically. It's no secret that she's growing to be more and more like her father, the late Tywin Lannister, one of the greatest players in the whole game. The Queen's vengeance on Illyria's sand was exceptionally satisfying, providing an emotional and poetic edge on an ironclad justice only she could deliver. Her interactions with Jon and Daenerys were tense as hell, too. You had the feeling that the fate of the entire realm rested on this insanely dangerous woman. Her ruthless plans and sinister intent have made the wait for the throne's return in 2019 all the more painful.
The dead will come north first. Enjoy dealing with them. We will deal with whatever is left of you.
Number 9 is the Vulture from Spider-Man Homecoming. Now, I would be remiss not to mention that the character of this film basically in no way resembles the Vulture of the comics, which is a move that tends to concern me in other cases. You're not my real dad! But I feel the character created for this film really works. Here, Toombs is a blue-collar worker taking advantage of the mountains of scrap produced by the Avengers' intergalactic skirmishes. I love how these big New York battles continue to have consequences, and how one guy with a vision became a force to be reckoned with just by getting his hands on it. Marvel Villain Syndrome is a term being thrown around a lot, but between Vulture, Hela, and the slightly spoilery villain of Guardians of the Galaxy 2, I think Marvel is trying to move the camera to its villains slightly more. I look forward to everything Michael Keaton does, and this marks 2 green armored villains he's played. The Vulture certainly soared high among the villains in theaters this year.
Why are you telling me this?
Because I want you to understand. And I needed a little time to get her airborne.
Number 8 is Pennywise from It. There was plenty of chatter about the new remake of It this year, and whether or not the new version of Pennywise would measure up to the big clown shoes he had to fill. From the second he first appeared on screen, I think he pretty soundly proved himself the definitive film Pennywise. No offense to the great Tim Curry, of course, but this version understands the dread and idea behind the character significantly more. Bill Skarsgård, of course, is phenomenally creepy in the role, able to shift from playful to terrifying at a moment's notice. I really love that despite how powerful Pennywise is, he feels rather tangible as a villain, if that makes sense. He has moments of frustration and can be challenged, despite being practically an embodiment of fear itself. A villain that had me shuddering in my seat in the theater. I'm glad I wore my yellow shorts to this screening.
Beep beep Richie.
Number 7 is Balthazar Bratz from Despicable Me 3. A sort of mediocre Despicable Me sequel actually gave us a rather fun villain in Balthazar Bratz, the former child star mentally broken by the world rejecting him and escaping into his TV identity as a persona he'll use to wreak havoc on the society that betrayed him. Holy shit, that's kind of deep for a Despicable Me movie, but that's not to say he's no fun, either. With a voice provided by South Park's Trey Parker, he's over the top in all the best ways. The writers clearly had the most fun writing his parts. I love all the various 80s-esque gadgets they came up with. The best comedic villains are those that can balance their humor with some competence to keep the stakes high, and Bratz's disguises and heavy artillery more than filled that role. Tied together with a hard-to-forget 80s page boy aesthetic, this blast from the past had me wanting more.
Plan was out of this world!
Now that's entertainment!
Number 6 is Stain the Hero Killer from My Hero Academia Season 2. Despite being a bit fresh still, My Hero Academia is one of my favorite anime for how it gives perspectives and subversions on the superhero formula, while still remaining incredibly uplifting and fun. I feel little accentuates that more than Stain, the hero killer, who is looking to exterminate today's superficial aspiring heroes. With a badass design and an ominous aura, he immediately sets himself apart from the villains we had met thus far. And the strikes he makes on our main characters are terrifying. Possessing one of my favorite quirks in the show, Blood Curdle, it took the combined might of a handful of heroes to stop this madman. Albeit that is partly due to the legal limits the heroes have on them. But what's great is that this speaks to his point about the futility of heroism these days. Make no mistake, this masked marauder would have any superhero shaking in their leather booties.
Impressive. Hero killer Stain. His quirk, Blood Curdle.
Number 5 is the Devil and King Dice from Cuphead. Cuphead was far and away one of my favorite pieces of media to come out of this year. The countless homages to classic animation are enough to make cartoon buffs like me drool, and even if you're not as huge a dweeb as me, the art has more than enough merit all on its own. The villain of the piece, the devil himself, along with his right-hand man, King Dice, send our heroes on an errand to collect the souls of an ensemble of fun opponents. King Dice makes a great place marker, barking at you along the way and reminding you of your progress and how far you have to go. He's one of those great villains that follows you along the way, anticipating a really, really great boss battle. We learn more of his duplicitous nature before said battle, and that even he is at the mercy of the devil. The best thing about the devil is how he juxtaposes the rest of the game's bright tone, always a bit scary and even a tad dismal, which isn't far off from how creepy some Fleischer cartoons could be. I won't spoil the game's quote-unquote bad ending, but if you choose to side the devil rather than fight him, it's a perfect creepy send-off that feels like a crunching gut punch after you spent a whole game dealing with goofy pirates and talking plants. They're an evil duo I'd sign for in a heartbeat. Number 4 is Brainiac from Injustice 2. I love NRS with all my heart in the way they can deliver grand stories, which is rarely easy for fighting games. Brainiac was a curious choice for a main villain, viewed by some as a character with vague or trivial motivation, that the writing of this game actually made pretty clear. Knowledge is a commodity to Brainiac. The rarer, the more valuable, and what could be rarer than the last 2 Kryptonians alive in the whole universe? Brainiac is always very meticulous and highly involved from early in the game, which is rare for fighting game big bads. Jeffrey Combs is lending his voice to the role and does an excellent job making him creepy and intelligent as all hell. And of course, his boss battle in his ship has that NetherRealm Studios brand of infuriatingly cheap and yet extremely fun and satisfying to overcome. The mean, green knowledge machine is a great villain to tide the wait for the inevitable NetherRealm Studios announcement this summer. I'm waiting, Ed. Don't let me down!
I value knowledge. And like your metal trinkets, knowledge is more valuable when it is rare.
Number 3 is Rita Repulsa from Power Rangers. At the risk of being that guy, I honestly loved the new Power Rangers movie. It was pretty much what I would want from a reboot, and the same can be said for Rita, a revival of a traditionally hammy villain with a dark edge, tied together beautifully by the talented Elizabeth Banks. Whether she was terrorizing a jewelry store or manipulating the Rangers to her favor, she dripped with dread and seemed a step ahead at every moment. I also love the history that surrounds her in this new Power Ranger continuity, which we will probably never see again because we can't have nice things. But the idea that she was an outcast, that Zordon looked down upon makes a lot of sense, and speaks to how she manipulates Trini, the outcast of the Rangers. Rita made steps and rose some dangerous stakes for our heroes. Without spoiling much, she provides a very tangible lethality to the conflict, exactly as a great villain should. Rita left me green with envy of those living in the timeline where this reboot actually went somewhere.
Did you miss me?
Number 2 is Negan, from The Walking Dead Season 7 and 8. As controversial as his entrance onto the show may have been, fuck it. Negan saved The Walking Dead. Fight me, haters. A show that started as an interesting quest for survival got dismal and repetitive fast, which is why it's great Negan crashed in and made things interesting. Jeffrey Dean Morgan makes such an incredible villain, chewing scenery and instilling intimidation with a mere look. For someone so easily associated with bloody murder and sadism, he's actually pretty damn nuanced and has pretty clear limits. You can strike up a conversation with him, and most of his dynamics are notably interesting. Especially with Carl, who he has a number of great moments with. Love him or hate him, you can't deny the impact he's had on one of the biggest shows on pop culture and the grand zeitgeist. One of the most memorable villains I've encountered in a long time, Negan's run on The Walking Dead is a home run.
You know what? You suck ass, Rick. You really do.
We've made it to the end of the list. But before we hit number 1, let's run through some honorable mentions. Like the villain of Guardians of the Galaxy 2.
Spoilers.
And the villain of Pixar's Coco.
Spoilers.
And the villain of Kingsman the Golden Circle.
Spoilers.
Alright, fine. Show me some that we can discuss. And number 1 goes to the Legion of Doom from the CW Arrowverse. The CW DC shows were really in full force this year, with some of their best arcs and episodes, and undeniably, their best villain.
Wait! There's one more Bebo right there!
But Bebo is too good for this list. Let's talk the Legion of Doom. If you told me the villain of Legends of Tomorrow's second season would be an unholy alliance of Malcolm Merlyn, Damien Dark, and the Reverse Flash, I would have slapped you because I'd never be that lucky. But holy shit, not only were these three just as great as they were before, but they played off each other exceptionally well. Despite bickering on occasion, they evened out one another perfectly. Merlin's cutthroat skill, Dark's eagerness to dirty his hands, and Thawne's vision. These three tackled a ton, including plucking Captain Cold out of the timeline before his redemption arc and using him at his worst. Snart has been all over the map morally, but no matter where he sits, he remains one of the best characters in the Arrowverse. With Legends being the culmination of everything in the Arrowverse, really, it only makes sense that they face an alliance of their biggest villains. And their action didn't even end with their alliance. Dark has returned yet again for what's shaping up to be an excellent arc as the main villain of Legends' third season, including an alliance with Gorilla Grodd. And Thawne, never one to be outdone, managed to make a really fun surprise showing as the instigator of the Crisis on Earth X crossover special, which in addition to being easily one of the best things I watched all year, gave us more of our favorite antithesis of the Scarlet Speedster at his most sinister. For serving an exceptional continuity of DC superheroes exceptionally well and tackling every avenue all throughout the year, I'm crowning the Legion of Doom the #1 villains of 2017.
It won't stay trapped for long. We have to go. We? Partners. Better.
I hope you all really enjoyed that video, and I hope you tune in soon for my next episode of Most Wanted. Who will it be about? I guess you'll have to wait and see who I cover in the future.
The future that is Aku.